We are now recording. Okay, well, my name is Ben Conway. I'm the lead pastor of Tree of Life Church in Dagenham in Essex. I'm the founder of the Tree of Life family, which is a growing network of growing churches across the UK. And, you know, in my dreams, it goes a lot further than the UK, amen. And I've got a track record of dreams coming true. This is our effective leadership course, part of our Gates of the City Leadership Academy. And this is lesson number 2. And lesson number 2 is the task of leadership. The task of leadership. What is the task of leadership? You're a leader, and we established last week we're all leaders. Every one of us is called to influence people when we looked at what leadership is. And now we're looking at what is the task of leadership. The number one task of leadership is to set priorities. Set priorities. That is your number one job as a leader, to set priorities. Okay? It's very simple. We had a situation recently where we had a group of youngsters come into one of our churches, just to kind of invade. And a couple of people in the church wanted to minister to them and make the whole service about them. But the pastor of that church realized very quickly that they weren't interested. They weren't interested in listening. They weren't interested in hearing the gospel. They weren't interested. And so he made the decision to focus on keeping the church service safe and focus on ministering to the people who were interested in being discipled, who were interested in growing grace, who were interested in hearing the word, who have got out of bed in the middle of a pandemic, made their way to church and decided to be part of that service. That is exactly the right decision. That was good leadership. Okay. And so leadership is about setting priorities when things happen. And a lot of us live in the demands of the urgent and never get the important things done. And we're going to discuss that today. So we're going to talk about why setting priorities is important, and I'll give you some advice and some wisdom on how to set priorities, okay? So I'm guessing most of us feel that time sort of pushes at us, that we're doing all we know to get everything done, and everything we want to get done is still not done. I don't know any leader, I don't know anybody who's pastoring, I don't know anyone who's in business leadership, I don't know anyone who's leading who says to me, hey, Ben, excuse me a second. I said, hey, Ben. Oh, yeah, Ben, yeah. I got so much time in my day. I got plenty of time to get everything done. I don't know anybody who says that. We're all at full workload. No one can work longer. No one can work harder. What we have to do is to develop. What we have to do is learn to invest in people so we can delegate things, and we have to learn to manage time. Okay. On Monday, this Monday at 12 o'clock, I'm doing a YouTube webinar. God told me to do this for pastors trying to get their church above 50. And one of the things we'll really major on in that YouTube webinar is the skill of delegation. You cannot pastor more than 50 people if you don't know how to delegate. You can't run a family of churches if you don't know how to delegate. Okay. And so we'll talk about some of that. And here's the thing. There's a lot of teaching about time management out there. There's a lot of teaching out there about time management. I find that laughable. Okay. We're going to teach you how to manage time. You can't manage time. Time goes at time's rate. It doesn't go faster. It doesn't go slower. 1 second at a time. Tick, 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 tick. You can't control time. You can't go back in time. Time machines are in the world of sci-fi and fantasy. They're not real. We can only go forward in time 1 second after another, again and again. There's no one listening to me right now who gets more than 24 hours a day. There's no one who gets 25 hours. No one. We all get the same. Time cannot be managed. You can't slow it down. You can't speed it up. It's unmanageable. What we need to work on, therefore, is not time management. It's choice management. It's priority management. You have to manage what's important and do what's important. And that is the essential task of being a leader. Working out with your brain or with your heart or by praying or by assessing, working out what is important, because we've all got limited time. We've all got finite time. We've all got finite energy. We've all got finite lives. You're going to die one day. So what we manage is the choices we make and the things we prioritize, and we do the things that are important. That's what you manage. You manage your priorities. You don't manage time. We have to set good priorities. Okay. So you need to learn how to manage your choices. And the more of a leadership capacity you develop, the more of a leader you become, the more your ability to make good priorities matters, because the more your choices and the actions that you make affect others. And if you make a bad choice, then that affects more people. okay? In my experience of, been at Bible college in the 90s, over 20 years of Christian ministry experience, in my experience, if a Christian in a church commits adultery, then really that affects them, it affects their wife, and it might affect 3 or 4 other people. If it's an elder in a church, it's going to affect maybe 20-30% of that church. If it's a pastor, 100% of the church are affected. You see, as your leadership capacity grows, the decisions you make affect more people. And I think as training leaders, as someone who's been doing that now for quite a while, the 2 hardest things to do, to get a Christian to do, number 1, is to get them to think. Just think about things. And then number 2, to prioritize what is really important. That skill to be able to decide what is important is prioritizing. That's all prioritizing is. What's important? And that is the most important task of a leader. That is the essential task of a leader, to be able to decide what's important. And then the flip side, very important as well, you have to state it like this, to be able to decide what is not important. No, we're not going to have a discussion about that. No, we're not going to go down this way. No, we're not going to have a meeting to have this. It's not important. And when you decide those things and can make those priorities and can make those decisions, you develop your ability to lead. A good leader thinks ahead, and they come to a situation and they prioritize. Okay, and there's all sorts of different people in life, isn't there? There's practical people. They get what they want out of life. There's philosophers. They know what they should want out of life. But leaders know how to get what they should want because they know how to prioritize. And that's the whole purpose of this morning, is to help you decide what's important, to help you set clear priorities, to help you become a more effective leader, to help you make choices in line with those priorities so you can become a better leader and have a better life. Okay, so priorities and pressures become linked. Okay, that's our first point today. Our priorities and our pressures become linked. There is no pressure on me to do something urgent if I don't prioritize it. I can have other people in the church yelling at me, Ben, you got to do this. Ben, the church needs to do this. The church has to go this way. But if I don't put a priority on it, there's no pressure. You see, one of the things we do is we get a lot of pressure from other sources, but you have to decide what's important. And when you decide something's unimportant, don't let it pressure you. Okay? So, there'll always be people who want to tell you what's important. There'll always be people who want to tell you what should be on your to-do list. There's always people who want to tell you what you should do first. But you are the leader. You decide what you do. You decide what you do today. I decide what I do today. I made my mind up. I came to this day, I'm going to do this webinar. Got up this morning, ready for this. Printed off the notes, got ready. Everything I did this morning was to prepare for today. Prayed in tongues, just relaxed a little bit, ready for this morning. After this, I'm going to go and take a walk because that's a priority, is getting some physical exercise in. And then this evening, I'm going to preach in Nuneaton, and that's my priority, to be planting new churches and actively involved in those new churches. You see, my priorities determine my pressures. If someone wants to call me today, well, I'm on the way to Nuneaton to minister the word, and they go, well, I need this, and I need that, and I need that. Well, I'm not going to put a priority on that, okay? Your needs and your problems did not happen overnight, okay? And we're not going to solve them one day, so it's not urgent. And I can prioritize that at low priority, make an appointment with you in the week when I'm not about to go and minister, and I can do that. You see, that's the essence of leadership, deciding how important things are, deciding when things are important. And you have to understand the difference. This is really, really important. You have to understand the difference between what is important. The word important, right? Let's define important. Important means that if I don't do this action, or if I don't do it well, it's going to affect my life in a big way. It's going to affect what I'm in charge of in a big way. So preparing for Sunday morning's message, when there's 100 people wanting to listen to that message in person, and there's another 50, 60, maybe more want to listen to it online, and then there's probably another 700 people will listen to it over the month. If I don't prepare that message well, then that's going to affect Tree of Life in a big way. That's going to affect hundreds of people in a big way. So that's a priority for me. And I've had emergency phone calls. Oh, you've got to do this, Ben. You've got to do this. You've got to do this. And it's my sermon preparation day. No, I don't. And very often, the people who phone me up, desperate for counsel, desperate with needs, desperate for prayer on a sermon preparation day, are the very people who are not listening to the sermon. So I've decided it's more important to tell them you need to get to church on time, you need to be in church, you need to listen to the word, take notes, and then when you show me the notes, I'll spend some time counseling you. I've got to say that's important. See, important means if I don't do it or don't do it well, then it has a big effect. Urgent just means it has to be done quickly. Most people live their life doing urgent, unimportant things. And we need to get out of that and get to the place where we're doing important things, whether they're urgent or not, okay? We have to be delivered from the tyranny of the urgent and choose to do what's important. And that's hard because the urgent's yelling at you. Other people are yelling at you. And you're a bad pastor if you don't do this and whatever else. And you have to say, no, I'm not going to do the urgent. I'm going to do what's important. And this is what separates good leaders from bad leaders. By changing your priorities, you then change the pressure on your life. And this is the difference between you being a good leader and a bad leader, okay? So I hope I've established now that learning to prioritize is very important. And people are more likely to follow you. They're more likely to like, remember that step ladder of leadership we did? People are more likely to like you. They're more likely to respect your fruitfulness if you can set good priorities. It's a rare skill and we need to have it. Okay, so let me tell you some keys to help you set good priorities. Is that okay? Is everyone okay right now? Just lots and lots of good mornings. Okay, no questions and just lots of good mornings. I can cope with that. I'll just keep talking. I believe this is blessing you. Okay, these are principles about setting priorities. Most people, number one, most people overestimate how important things are. You get your to-do list for today. It's Saturday. It's a day off probably. You can make your whole list of what you have to do today. And you could divide that into 3. Anyone's to-do list can be divided into 3. Things you want to do, things you have to do, and things you should do. You know, you don't have to do them, but you should do them. It's good if you do them. Now, all of those things are the same level of importance, and some of them will not be important. One of the hallmarks of wisdom is knowing what to ignore. Like that beep right now means someone's texted me. Do you know what? I'm ignoring it because I'm doing this. Okay. One of the hallmarks of wisdom is knowing what to ignore. Petty tasks can steal so much time from us, and we invest our lives in the wrong things. There are so many things that are so inconsequential, you need to learn to ignore them. Never do today what is worth never doing. Okay? Never put off till tomorrow what you never have to do. There are certain things that we waste our time on doing. Let me just cancel that and kill the WhatsApp. There we go. And there are certain things we're doing, but if they don't help us and they're not important and they don't, then why are we doing them? So that's number one. Most people overestimate how important things are. Ask yourself, there's something you're doing all the time. You hate it. It's on your to-do list. Why am I doing this? Is it important? Can I get away with not doing it? Number 2, having too many priorities leads to weariness. And then when you're tired, you don't do anything. Listen to me. You are not the jack of all trades. You are not the savior of the universe. Jesus Christ is, and he has prepared tasks for you that you can do and you're good at doing. You need to find your sweet spot where your gifts are being used for the kingdom. That doesn't mean everything you do in life is going to be nice. It doesn't mean everything on your to-do list is going to be pleasant. Well, especially if you're pioneering something new, a new business, a new church. You know, I've planted a new church. You got to do everything. You got to put the chairs out. You got to do this. You got to do that. You got to do this. You got to deal with everybody. Okay. But what it does mean is that you have a unique contribution to any given community, to any given situation, and that should be your priority. I remember once, and I'm showing my age a bit now, as a young boy, I went to the circus and I saw a lion tamer. You can't have lion tamers anymore. You're not allowed lions in the circus. But I saw the lion tamer, and he walks into a cage. I thought he was so cool. I was about 7 or 8 years old. And I thought this guy was so cool. He goes into the cage, and there's 3 lions. And every one of those lions obeys him. And he had a little stool with him, just a little stool. I mean, you must have seen this in cartoons and things. You haven't seen it in real life. There's a little stool. And he goes into the cage, and he points the stool at the lion, and the lion won't move. I found out later, I only found out a long time later, it's one of those things always, how do you do that with a little stool? And it's the lion looks at all 4 legs of the stool, and he's trying to work out which one's more important, and he's trying to work out which one's more dangerous, and the divided focus confuses the lion to the point where the lion's tired, he's mentally weary, and he can't act, and so the tamer is now in control. That sums up some of your lives, doesn't it? Yeah? So some of you, that would sum up your life. You got your to-do list is too long. You got too much paperwork. Everything's where it shouldn't be. People come to you wanting stuff, and all those demands. You're like the lion. Oh, I'll just do whatever anyone says. No, you have to look at that list and you have to prioritize. Say, that's not important. That doesn't matter. That matters a little bit. That matters a lot. And everything else that doesn't matter a lot, that can wait because I'm doing the stuff that really matters. Okay. Point number 3. And I will send you these notes and I will send you these points if you need them. But it's also good to write things down. It's a way of learning. Number 3, when you prioritize little things, your problems will be big. When what you prioritize is the little things, you'll have big problems. We need to prioritize the big things, not the little things. Some of you remember, again, it was 1986. 1986, Challenger, the space shuttle exploded. I mean, it was a horrific thing. People are watching this live, and the space shuttle just explodes. There was a big rush to find out, well, why did that happen? What happened? And the failure was caused by a seal. It was called an O-ring seal. And it was using a joint, and it was too cold for that seal to work. That was the problem. And it was really cold. The day of the launch was exceptionally cold. It was a very simple issue, but no one had prepared for it. No one had thought about that seal being an issue. Now, how many of you know a space rocket not exploding is a big issue? Well, that's important, that this thing does not explode. That's an important issue. But everybody was working on less important things. They had more engineers working on the TV live link than they did on the other issues. Than on whether the space shuttle was ready to launch. The TV live link is a small issue. It's not the big issue. The big issue is getting the thing to launch safely. Some of the engineers on the shuttle said to NASA, we can't take off safely. We need to go another day when it's 12 degrees centigrade higher. We need to go on a warmer day. That there's a problem with these seals, they were told. But there was other issues with the takeoff date. The urgency of the PR of it, the urgency of the public relations, the urgency of impressing people obscured the important issue. The important issue was that your rocket doesn't explode. That's the big issue. And I've seen people focus on little things, focus on the PR, focus on this, where rockets are exploding in their lives. The reason that most people do not achieve major goals in their life is they invest far too much time doing the little things and putting the little things first. Anytime you're more focused on the little things than the big things, you're going to explode. Okay? Put the first things first. Do the important things. What it looks like is not important. We spend a lot of time on PR in our generation. It's a big thing. What does it look like? What's the spin on this? That's not important. What's important is what it is. Okay? Number 4. If everything is prioritized, you've prioritized nothing. If everything is high priority, got to get done right now, then nothing's a priority. You'll be unable to make a decision. We have to learn to say some things are not a priority. Having certain guest speakers in Tree of Life, not a priority. They're not going to help us. Oh, but they went to this church. I don't care. What's my priority? My priority is building healthy, solid churches that are full of the word, full of the spirit, full of the nations, and filled with love. And so if someone's going to come in and just have a good time and hype everyone up, I'm not interested in that. I'm absolutely not interested in that. I'm interested in building the kingdom, okay? And so if everything's high priority, nothing's high priority. And number 5, some people, this is true, they don't make good leaders. They will never prioritize unless there's an emergency. Remember the Titanic? I'm not old enough to remember that one in person. 1912, the Titanic crashed into an iceberg in the Atlantic. There was a woman on board and she was in one of the lifeboats. And she got a place in one life. Very few people got into those lifeboats, as you know. The lifeboat was about to be launched. She said, I need to go back to my room. They said, you've got 3 minutes to get your room and back. Otherwise, we're launching without you. 3 minutes. She got out of the boat and she ran over piles of cash and jewelry and valuables. She went to her room. She didn't go and get expensive jewelry. She didn't go and get diamonds or pearls. No, she grabbed some oranges, a bag of oranges, and then ran back to the boat. I guarantee that 3 hours before that, that woman would never have walked past diamonds for oranges. But the change of circumstances forced a change of priorities. And some people will never change their priorities until they're forced to. Good leadership change your priorities before you're forced to. See these things coming, anticipate, have the vision. This is where we're going. You know, at the moment, I'm making big changes to how I pastor the pastors. Up until now, it's been an informal process. Very informal. I mean, the pastors of Tree of Life family are some of my best friends in the world. Richard and Jackie, Lee and Janet, and Chris and Vaughn, and Elaine and Caroline, Patience. Honestly, they're some of my best friends in the world. So me pastoring them has been a very informal process. But now it has to formalize, because I'm not just dreaming of a family of 6 churches. I'm dreaming of a family of 20, 30 churches. We could easily have 10 churches by the end of next year. So I need to formalize that. So we've started formal pastors' meetings. We've started doing a couple of things. We're starting to move things on. I'm not going to feel I've got to drive to a church every time there's an emergency, which is what I have been doing. I'm going to stay back and like, how can I equip the pastor to this? How can we get the pastor to the place? And so I'm changing, because I don't want to be crashing out and falling asleep at the wheel of the car 3 years from now when I'm trying to visit 12 churches every month, or 15 churches every month, or 20 churches every month. Okay, so I realize that there will be an emergency if I don't prioritize now. That's called good leadership. Okay, so how do we set priorities? Let's see how we're all doing. Never do today what's not important. So true. I've learned the hard way. It's good to have you all with us. Praise God. Okay, so how do I set priorities? You want to be a better leader? Don't wait for a tragedy to start deciding what's important. Start deciding what's important now, and make good choices now. And remember, the better choices you make with better priorities, more people will like you. You'll be able to get into that friendship leadership with more people. More people will respect your fruitfulness. More people will want to be you. You'll be a more effective leader. So make good priorities. Make good choices. Number 1, and this is a cliche, but it's a true cliche, work smarter, not harder. To be able to produce more, you have to do things you've never done before. Adding intensity and working harder is great for short term, but it doesn't work long term. You can't work all out like that. You'll collapse. You can't take it. Einstein said one of the definitions of insanity is to keep doing the same thing and expecting different results. That's what so many people do. If what you're doing is not working, do something different. When I started on radio, okay, when I started on radio, I used to record the programs in my house. Late at night, I'd record the programs. If someone rang the doorbell, guess what? That entire radio program, it could be 28 minutes or 55 minutes, that I had to stop and start the whole radio program again. And I needed 3 or 4 programs every single week. And it took hours and hours and hours to do that. And I was up till 3, 4 in the morning, because that's when everyone else was asleep. That's when it was quiet. And I was recording these radio programs. I didn't know how to increase our radio ministry. I couldn't work any harder. I didn't have the time to do it. I didn't have anything else to do. What I did was I pressed pause on my life and said, right, how can I do this smarter? And what I did was I paid someone who's gifted at sound editing, and they now take my sermons, which guess what? I'm preaching my sermons anyway, so it's 0 time for me at all. And they take my sermons, cut them down to the length of the radio show, add an intro and an outro to them. And now I've got a massive, much larger radio ministry, 5 times the size radio ministry. We've got Richard on radio using the same principles. Lee's on radio using the same principles. And now I'm doing a lot less work, but getting a lot more fruit. Working smarter, not harder. So sometimes you just need to press pause. That's what a lot of people do. We're running so fast, we don't press pause. How are we doing this? Is this the best way to do this? Disciplined use of time that other people waste will give you the ability to work smarter, not harder, and give you the edge. Okay, that's number 1, work smarter, not harder. Number 2, you've got to realize you can't have it all. You can't. Have you ever taken your kids, I've got 4 kids, they're pretty much adults now, but you take them to a toy shop or a sweet shop, and they think, oh, you're going to get, man, pick one toy. I count my calories every day. Every day I count my calories. And so I have this choice. If I eat a big breakfast, I'm going to have to pay for that in the evening. I can't have it all. You can't have it all. I remember Lydia, when she was younger, she could spend an hour. We wouldn't let her do this, but she could. She could easily spend an hour in an ice cream shop just picking a flavor of ice cream. She just couldn't choose. One of the major keys to productivity, to being fruitful is this. What do you want? And know what you want. I've talked about this a lot when it comes to dreaming. And it's so important when you're a leader. Know what you want. You can't have it all. There's this big thing in our generation, isn't there? You heard of this, haven't you? You've heard of FOMO. You might have heard of that. FOMO, it's a fear of missing out. And we go on our phones, we get our phones out, and we look at other people's wonderful, brilliant, awesome lives on Facebook, and we look at their Photoshop pictures, and we get jealous of how wonderful their lives are. And we go, oh man, look at that person. Scroll down, look at that person on Instagram. Look at oh man, was there a party there? I missed that party. Oh, I wasn't there. Oh, I couldn't get to that. And then we could be more spiritual. Oh, I wish I'd been at that conference. Oh, I wish I'd been at that meeting. Oh, I wish I'd been here. Wish I'd been there. Blah, 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 blah. FOMO. We're scared of missing out. We've created this whole generation because of our online connectivity where we're scared of missing out. Listen, I got something much better than FOMO to offer you today. I got JOMO. JOMO is the joy of missing out. I tell you what, I am so excited that I am not in any other church tonight but Nuneaton. I am so excited because that's where I need to be. That's where God's called me to be. I could be somewhere else right now this second, but I'm joyful to be here. I am joyful. I'm not anywhere else. This is the best place for me. And you need to get joyful. You're missing out on everything. You don't have to do everything. You don't have to do what you do. You don't have to be at every conference. You don't have to solve every problem. You don't have to be everywhere. You know, you don't have to do everything. You do what you can do. And you do what God's called you to do. And if you're missing out on other stuff, you're missing out. That's okay. You know, we were talking, I was talking to a friend of mine recently, and they just had a powerful evangelistic crusade. So 100 and something people born again in a church, and this happened, this happened. You know what? I can't do that. I do not have the equipment to be an evangelist. I do the work of an evangelist, just like every pastor should, but I don't have the equipment to be an evangelist. I can't equip people in that way. I don't have that supernatural equipment, but I don't get upset. I just do what God's called me to do, and I get excited about doing what I'm called to do, and you should get excited about doing what you're called to do. There should be a joy of missing out. There should be a joy that other people can do it. There should be a joy that we can all see things that other people can't see. There should be a joy. Imagine you're going to run a 100-meter race. I'm talking about real quick, 10-second, boom, race, boom, fast one to the finish line. And you see the competitors, and one of the guys turns up and he's got a bottle of wine, a big piece of cheese. What are you doing? Oh, I'm going to have a party at the finish line, man. You're not going to go, oh, I wish I had wine and cheese. You're going to go, you're not going to win, mate. What you're carrying is irrelevant. They don't help you do this task. And a lot of us are like that. We're carrying around so much stuff that doesn't help us do the task. It doesn't help us get the job done. If you want to be a success in life, and especially if you want to be a successful leader, and I assume that's why you're here today, you must make choices. You can't have it all. And one of the hardest choices is turning down something good for something better. That's my third point here. The worst enemy of God's best for your life is not bad things, because most of us aren't stupid enough to go for the bad things. It's good things. Most people can choose between good things and bad things. Most people don't struggle to make that choice. They choose the good things. You know, I'm talking about Christians who are born again, got their mind renewed for a little bit. You know, the real challenge is what do you do when you have two choices and they're both good? How do I decide which is better? How do I decide which one of these is better? Okay, you know, we have our conferences. We have Gates of City and Heal the Nations. You know, we got a conference in a few days' time. I got 4 nights, 4 speakers. I could do 7 nights and 7 speakers. I could do 20 nights and 20 speakers, but 4 I think is about right for your stamina levels and people's ability and to create a sense of joy. I think 4 is a good number for this little conference. I think 4. I don't think we need any day sessions. I think we've got it right. But then, which speakers to invite? There's a lot of good speakers out there. I've got a lot of friends who are good traveling speakers and would love to preach for me and love to be part of that conference. But you know, I'm talking well-renowned speakers here, and they both offer. I could choose them. They got great ministry. They got great ministry, but they're different. How do I choose? I've seen pastors crippled by that decision. Oh, I don't want to know. You got to work out what's important. And I decided what's important for this conference was it's going to be taking the limits of God. And what I decided was I wanted speakers who have started something from nothing. That's what I wanted. People who had nothing and then got something. Okay. And that helped me prioritize what's important for this conference. What are we trying to build into people? How are we trying to help people? Okay. There was once a lighthouse keeper. Let me tell you a story of a lighthouse keeper. You ready for story time with Ben? Here we go. And he worked on a rocky coast. This is before electricity was invented or discovered or whatever you did with electricity. And every month they brought this lighthouse keeper the oil. Here's your month's oil for the lighthouse. And he didn't live far from town. People come visit him and spend time with him. A friendly chat. One night a lady came and said, my family are freezing and we can't turn the heating on. We've got no oil. And so I've got loads of oil here. And he was a kind man. He gave her the oil. And then a father came and said, I can't get my machinery going. I can't work on my farm. So he gave him some oil. And towards the end of the month, the man gave up oil for this and oil for that. And towards the end of the month, he ran out of oil. And 2 days before the month ran out, there was a storm There was a ship wrecked on the rocks, that's right. And people died. And during the investigation, the man was very sad, very repentant, but they kept telling him, your oil only has one purpose, to keep the light burning. That is the only reason we gave you the oil. As a Christian leader, your oil, your life, your energy, your time has only one purpose, to keep the light burning. You know, I often get a phone call. Thursday's normally my sermon preparation day, and I'll sit here in my office, or I'll sit upstairs on the sofa, and I will type out my sermons and read books, and I'll pray, and it'll take me 10, 12 hours to write my sermon. And I often get a phone call, my marriage is in trouble, I need help. I remember telling someone, look, today is my sermon writing day, and tomorrow, Friday, is my day off, and then Saturday I'm ministering, Sunday I'm ministering. And so he starts trying to manipulate me, trying to make me feel guilty, trying to make me feel bad, trying to make me do that. No. You see, my priority is not to help you. My priority is to keep the light burning. And that's the greatest help you can have, is to get you and your wife to the sermon on Sunday and get the word of God inside you. That's the greatest help you need from me. I'm at my best when I'm preaching. I'm at my best when I'm ministering that way. You know, we get, what does this church do for depressed people? Oh, we have a powerful message every Sunday for depressed people. And it takes me 10 hours to get it ready. And oh, really? That's awesome. When is it? Sunday morning during the sermon. Oh, no. You know, what does this church do for married people? Well, we have marriage counseling every Sunday morning. It takes me 10 hours to prepare for it. You mean the sermon again, don't you? Yes. What does this church do for homosexual people? What does this church do for alcoholics? What does this church do for lonely people? What does this church people do for sick people? The foolishness of preaching. That's the priority. It's amazing how many people miss the sermon and miss church on Sunday for much lighter reasons than the ones I've ignored all week to make sure it's written and make sure I can preach good. But that's my light. That's my top priority, because that keeps the whole church together. That keeps me sane. It keeps me having to choose between two good things. I have my priorities. It makes me a good pastor. It makes me a good leader. Many people run themselves exhausted into the ground doing good things, but they're not the best things. They're not the important things. And they fail themselves, and they never become a fruitful person. They never become a fruitful leader. And here's the truth. You have to realize this. The more successful you become, the busier your life will be. It's that simple. And the harder it will be to prioritize, because there's more stuff to prioritize from. Trust me, when I got a speaking engagement 15 years ago, I didn't need to pray about it. I didn't need to ask God about it. I just went because I only had one about a year. Oh, wow, time for my speaking engagement of the year. Praise God, somebody had the craziness to invite me. At the moment, I've got more speaking invites than one human could ever fulfill, ever. So guess what? I've now got to prioritize. I've got to make, and some of them are good. You know, I've got to choose between this one, and I know it's only going to get more. I know that. So you have to prioritize. You have to learn how to sacrifice the good for the better, and then have a JOMO. I'm happy I chose this. I'm here. I'm happy I'm not there. I'm happy I'm not there. I'm not scared I'm missing out. Learn to do that, and you'll be fruitful. And then the fourth thing is this. You've got to learn to be proactive. So many people are reactive. Okay, you need to be a planner. A planner is proactive. Otherwise, you're a reactor. Okay, you need to be a proactor, not a reactor. And so you need to choose so that you're proactive more. Now, there's some things you're going to have to react to. Sometimes something will happen, you're going to have to react right there and right then. But if you're proactive, you get to choose more. You choose your battles, you choose your battleground, you can do a lot more. The question you get to very quickly when you start being fruitful is not, will I have something to do? No, it's what can I do? Of all the things I've got to do, which ones are going to make the most difference? That's being proactive. You've got to prepare. You've got to plan ahead. Don't just live in the moment. What's going to happen next? Okay, so I'm planting a church in Nuneaton right now, and so at the moment it's 2 meetings a month. Well, the next goal is to make it 4 meetings a month, or weekly meetings. Okay, well, how's that going to happen? Who's going to take those meetings? It can't be me. I can't just work harder. I've got to work smarter. Who can I train and delegate and invest in now and love and get to the point where they can get ready for that? Planning ahead. Plan for the growth and get ready for the growth. Be the first one to make the phone call. Don't wait for people to call you. You should be making, every one of you, unless you work in a call center, you should be making more outgoing calls than incoming calls. Anticipate problems. The quicker you see problems coming, the easier it is to deal with them. You know, don't wait for the right moment. Make the moment right. Seize the day and get it done. Make your to-do list your priorities, what you think is important, not what other people tell you is important. And invest in people. The more of a leader you become, the more building people is more important than doing the job, okay? Most people are most productive at work, this is a statistical fact, the week before they go on holiday, because that's when they plan ahead. Well, I better get that phone calling, so I'm going to go on holiday for 2 weeks. I better get that deadline sorted, I better finish my project, I better clean my desk, I better make my calls, I better get ready. But you can actually live your whole life that productive. You can actually live your whole life. You've got to change the way you think. You've got to think like a leader. You've got to stop having this mentality, go to work and survive, and start thinking, how can I be efficient? Well, not just efficient, but how can I be effective? How can I be successful? How can I do what's important? Stop thinking about doing things right, which is important, but step back. What's importanter, what's more important is what are the right things to do? And that will make you proactive. Awesome. Case just said, people pleasing comes in the way of priorities. Yes, it does. I mean, even yesterday, an email. If you were a good pastor, if you loved God, if you had the love of God in your heart, you would let this happen. You would do this. That's just pure manipulation. That's just pure trying to make me feel guilty, okay, to do what you want, to make your priorities my priorities. That's not how life works. And that's not good leadership. That'd be bad leadership. So, number 5, put the important above the urgent, okay? You see, again, the more your capacity as a leader grows, the more things you're going to have to do, the more things you're going to have to get done. So your ability to prioritize when all the tasks in high priority is something you need to learn. Either you organize or you agonize. Organizing is better. And so you clarify tasks. Most people, bad leaders, live in the urgent, things that have to get done, have to get done, have done, and they don't stop and do what's important, what's really important. Okay, so if something's important and urgent, do that right now. If something's important but not urgent, then make it urgent. Say, right, I'm going to get this done by Tuesday. You set your own deadlines. You're the leader of your life. You say, well, this is important. I'm going to have this done by next week. I'm going to have this done here. And you start doing half an hour a day or 30, an hour a day, whatever it is. Make it part of your routine. If it's not important but urgent, get it done. If it can be done quickly, just do it now. Sometimes I get an urgent email. I'll just reply right there and then. Boom, 10 seconds, done, out of the way. It's not on my to-do list. Don't have to put it on my to-do list. Don't have to think about it. Boom. If I can't do it straight away, can I delegate it? Can I fire this email? I mean, this is what I do when I get my inbox, by the way. It's what I do, right? If it's urgent, right, I'll reply straight away. Boom. There you go. If it can take 10 seconds to reply, I'll do it. Get out of the way, right? Or could I forward it to someone else? We had an email this week about one of our venues. I don't meet in that venue. I'm not part of the pastor of the church in that venue. I just forward it to the pastor. Can you have that sorted for me, please? Delegated. There you go. If not, if it's not important, but it's urgent, can I make it less urgent? Is it okay if I get this done next week for you? Can I make it less? So do, delegate, delay. That helps me a lot when I'm going through a list of tasks. I'm going to do it right now, delegate it or delay it. And then I've gone through that. And now what I'm left with is stuff, well, listen, right? If it's not important, but it's urgent, and I can do it, delegate it or delay it. If it's not important and it's not urgent, then I can bin it, boot it or battle it. Bin it means I just decide I'm not going to do that. It's not worth doing it. I'm not going to do it. Okay. Boot it means I delegate to someone else. And then battle it means I'll set aside an hour a week just to get it done because it has to be done at some point because it will become urgent if I don't do it. But I never make that my important time. That's the kind of stuff I'll do sitting in front of the TV in the evening. It's not a focus of mine. It just has to get done. There are some tasks that are just not important. They're not urgent. They've got to be done at some point. They become urgent if I don't do them. And I'm not going to give them a high priority. So I want to work on the important things. And it's not hard for you to look at the tasks you have to do and say, right, that's important. That's not. That's urgent. That's not. And then you can prioritize your day. You can work on the things. Most people have this, well, anything goes. Well, if anything goes, nothing goes. No, but if you determine your priorities and stick to them, okay, you'll win. You'll always win. Praise God. Unorganized leaders put pressure on people they lead. They do, absolutely. Important above the urgent. So good. I'm glad that helps. Praise God. I'm glad this is helping you guys. Right, let's talk about something that you may have heard of before. It's called the Pareto principle. It's also called the 80-20 rule. This is a really important principle, 80-20 rule, the Pareto principle, and it's so valuable because you realize it's pretty much universal. The Pareto principle works in pretty much any situation, and it'll help you determine priorities, not just for yourself, but for any organization you lead. And this is a principle. 20% of your priorities give you 80% of your production. Okay, let me say that again. 20% of your priorities give you 80% of your production. And as long as what do I mean? Well, 20% of your time gives you 80% of your results. 20% of the people that you lead take up 80% of your time. 20% of your stocks will make 80% of your profit. 20% of the book will tell you 80% of the story. 20% of your job gives you 80% of the joy of doing it. 20% of the sermon gives you 80% of the impact. 20% of the people give 80% of the offering. 20% of the people pay 80% of the taxes. 20% of the people eat 80% of the food in the world. It applies to almost every situation, 20-80, 20-80. And as a leader, you need to come to terms with that. It's just a universal rule, and it helps you make priorities. If you have 10 things that are important you have to do, 2 of them will give you 80% of your results. The other 8 will only give 20%. So you're going to invest your time, your money, and your effort in those 2. And that'll be far more productive than investing in all of them. So this principle of leadership of focusing on the top 20% is one of the most fruitful things you can do. I get into a lot of trouble with other pastors when I talk about this. I will talk about this on Monday in a pastoring context, and how to pastor people, okay? 20% of people in your church give you 80% of your joy and 80% of the rewards of pastoring, and 20% of people in your church, a different 20%, give you 80% of the grief and 80% of the problems. You know, well, when I sit down to help pastors deal with problem people, it's not a different person every week. It's the same 20% every single week. The same 20% of people who can't work out how to play ball with others, who can't work out how to share the toys, who can't work out how to flow, who can't work out how to be part of something larger themselves, who can't work out all that kind of stuff, okay? And so I tell pastors, you don't focus on the bottom 20%. You focus on the top 20%. You focus on the 20% who bring in the most money, who bring in the most love, who are your biggest givers, your biggest clients, your biggest customers. I mean, this applies outside of church as well. This is a general leadership thing. Okay, praise God. Praise God. Okay, so Kay just typed in a question there, and it made me completely lose where I am on my notes. Thank you, Kay. That wasn't your fault at all. Look how easily distracted I am. Right. This 80-20 rule works in any question, any organization. Everyone in the org chart of any organization does not impact the organization equally. Some people carry a greater load, and it will turn out 20% of the people will carry 80% of the load. Sadly, the people who demand and need the most time, the bottom 20%, will demand 80% of your time, 80% of the effort, 80% of the problem solving. The people at the top demand the least from their leaders because they're self-motivating, they're self-directed. But you should make the choice as a good leader. And this is, again, where other pastors get upset with me because they say, no, you need to work with a squeaky wheel. No, you don't oil the squeaky wheel. Well, what if you don't oil the squeaky wheel? Well, either they stop being squeaky or they go and squeak in another church. Either way, you win. And that upsets people. But I want to impact as many people as possible. I want to change the world for Jesus. And so I want to focus on the progressive people, and that brings the whole organization to a culture of progress. If you as a leader work out in your leadership organization who are the top 20% contributors and producers, and then spend 80% of your time with the top 20% of people and help the top 20% of your people work out what their 20% zone is, where they can produce the most, and allow them to give 80% of their time and effort to it, I'm telling you, you'll change your whole organization. You'll change the world. And then get that 80% delegated away from them to free them up to do what they do best. How do you determine the top 20% contributors? You work out how many people in your organization, you work out the math, you do the math, that's your top 20%, give them the resources, give them leadership opportunities. How does a pastor, okay, I'm talking about pastors now. In business, it's probably slightly different, but I'm a pastor. This is what I know. If I want to know who the top 20% people in the church are, I will say, right, we're having a special meeting this Sunday. I'll give nobody any notice. I'll say on Monday or Tuesday, special meeting this Sunday, an hour before church, 9:30. Church starts at 10:30. If you want to come, we're going to pray. It's going to be a very special meeting. Your top 20% will be there. It'll be almost exactly 1/5 of your church will turn up for that meeting. And they're your 20%. There you go. Problem solved. Give those people the resources. Give those people the leadership opportunities. Make those people the elders and the deacons and the leaders. Don't make the squeaky wheels the elders and the leaders and the deacons. Okay. There are 3 R's to prioritizing. Remember primary school, 3 R's, reading, writing, arithmetic? Well, there are 3 R's to determining your priorities. What's important to you? Okay. 3 R's. Okay. Now, the good thing about these 3 R's, they'll actually begin with their R. Requirements, return, and reward. And in the midst of this, Kay, that's why I got a bit confused, because I knew I was going to answer your question at some point. Okay, so in the midst of this, I'll answer Kay's question. Kay's question, very good question. Some tasks evoke anxiety in you. Does that mean maybe you should not be doing it? Sometimes, yeah, don't do it if it makes you anxious. Sometimes it means do it first. There was a thing I was taught called, if your to-do list has eat a frog on it, then that's going to be the first thing you do. Otherwise, you're going to spend the whole day concerned they're going to have to eat the frog. You're going to worry about that frog all day. But if you just grab it in the morning, gone, frog's gone, it's done. Okay, that's a very graphic illustration of something quite, but sometimes there are things a bit, okay. Listen, Kay, I have tasks on my to-do list which makes me feel anxious. Sometimes I've got to correct somebody. Sometimes I've got to disciple somebody, and that means discipline. So I'm going to tell someone, look, if you keep acting like this, you can't be part of Tree of Life. I had to send out an email to some of our leaders this week describing someone's behavior because I needed people to know that this person was being dishonest, and I needed people to be aware of that situation. I didn't like doing that. I'd rather be preaching and laying hands on the sick and extending the kingdom, but that's part of pastoring. Mark those who cause division among you. That's as much Bible as by his stripes were healed. So I did that first. I did that first thing yesterday and sent that email out. Did it first, and then I did the rest of the day. So I didn't spend the whole day with that on my mind. Okay. Now, sometimes that sense of anxiety means it doesn't have to be done, but anxiety is not how you tell if something's important. This is how you tell if something's important. Number one, if it's something you have to do, if it's a requirement. Okay. I am the senior pastor of the Tree of Life family. Do you know what it means? It means I cannot negotiate or delegate. The buck stops with me. I can't give the buck to someone else. You understand that, yeah? Okay? If you're the man and you're the head of your family, the buck in that family stops with you. You can't delegate that to someone else. If you're the boss in that area of the office, you can't delegate that to someone else. Only I can carry the dream of Tree of Life. I can't delegate that. And there's other things no one can delegate. You can't delegate your personal integrity. No one else can be integrous for you. No one else can make godly choices for you. There's a saying in the gym, no one can do your push-ups for you. There are some things, if you don't do them, you won't benefit from. Speaking in terms of leadership, no one can do your reading for you. No one can do your studying for you. No one can do your personal developing for you. You can't delegate those things because they personally benefit you. It is required you do them yourself. And you can't delegate that final responsibility. If you work for an organization, you know, you might have to speak to your boss and say, what do you expect me to do? Where does the buck stop with me? Because otherwise you're going to waste time and energy doing things that aren't important. So number one, requirement. Number two, return. What I mean is, what are you good at? What do you get really good return from? I mean, there are some things you can do a little effort. Preparing this message is easy for me because it's what I live. It's what I do. And it's an instinctive thing for me. Okay, teaching that step ladder of leadership last week. I've taught it so many times, so many places. I mean, I've got my notes in front of me to keep me going off and talking about other things. But the notes are not there to tell me what to say. The notes are there to tell me what not to say. They're to help me prioritize. Do you understand? And so that's easy for me. Holding a healing meeting's easy for me. I've been doing healing meetings since I was in Bible college. I've been seeing the sick healed since, for over 20 years, seeing people get out of wheelchairs, seeing healings. That's easy for me. I get a big return on that. I don't have to put a lot of effort in, and I get a lot of return back. It was wonderful watching people develop as leaders. It's wonderful watching people get healed. There are other things. If you ask me to speak on end times, which I've done a couple of times, I'm a pastor. I want to give people the full counsel of God. I don't have the excuse I'm a traveling minister and get another traveling minister, and I'm a pastor. It takes a bit of effort. It takes a bit of investment. It takes longer. But what I'm talking about is there's things that with little effort and little investment, you get really good results. Remember, our goal in life is not activity. There's no reward for who does the most. The reward is for producing, okay? There are some activities I excel at, so I invest more time in those. Find your sweet spot and delegate the things you're second rate at. Today, after this is finished, Lee is going to do a seminar at 10 o'clock on finances, and Amanda's going to do a 10 o'clock healing university. Okay, I could have done all of it myself, one after the other. Lee is better at talking on finances than I am. Lee has a very exceptional gift on finances, and Amanda's just amazing at taking some sermon like Andrew teaches, and she's amazing at making you think about little bits of it. And what did you think of this? Even last night, she's texting the whole family some stuff she read, and it's like, wow, I read that book, I saw that sermon, I didn't see that. Amanda has such a gift in that area, and so find your sweet spot and do that. Now, obviously, if you're pioneering, you've got to do everything. It takes a while before you've got people you can delegate to. But, what's your sweet spot? Well, what do other people always ask you to do? I find out I found out my sweet spot was healing and leadership, because every time I get asked to be a guest speaker, that's what we talk on, healing and leadership. Okay? And so other people know even if you don't know. There are always clues. And then finally, reward. And this comes back a little bit to your question, Kay, but, do what you like. I mean, God has designed you to enjoy life, and life is short, and you should do things that are fun. I love pastoring. I don't go and preach in churches where I don't like, and it's a big battle. I've done that before. I've done that. I'm not interested in having a big argument about, I don't believe in that grace stuff. Fine, go away. I want to teach that grace stuff to people who love hearing the grace stuff. Life is too short. What would you do for nothing if you were rich? If I gave you £10 million tomorrow, what would you do for free? That's what you should earn and get your money doing. If you're doing something, you feel, man, I was born for this. You are in the right place. There's a reward. It's a beautiful thing when you're doing what you're called to do. Let me tell you something else. What would I like for time? I've got about 8 minutes left. I'm not taking more advice here because my next thing is this, and it's something I've had to learn. It's something I've only learned recently. Ensure your life has margins. What do I mean by margin? I mean a gap between one thing and another thing. You need a gap between things. Okay, space in your life. There needs to be space in your day planner. There needs to be space in your monthly calendar. There needs to be space in your year planner, because your goal's not who can do the most, it's who can produce the most. And unless there's space, you can't produce. Unless there's space to dream. Margin is deciding, I'm not going to go 100% because I can't sustain it. I'm not going to go at a pace that's going to knock me out on my back in 10 weeks' time, and then I'm not used to anyone. When I first started the church, I would regularly go to America, land at Heathrow Sunday morning, get in a taxi or even drive straight to church and preach. And I'm in a totally different time zone. My brain's in a different time zone. How those messages bless someone, I have no idea. There's no margin from this busy round of conferences. So I'm not stopping and pausing and thinking about the conference. I'm at the conference writing my sermon rather than listening to the words. And, there's no margin there. It's not good priorities. It's not good for the people who had to hear that sermon. Margin is providing a gap so we don't do our best stuff exhausted. So this afternoon, I'll go for a nice walk. I'll relax. I'll watch a little bit of TV. Why? So when I go to Nuneaton, I'm fresh. My message is already prepared. I've already prayed. I've already done it all before so that I don't have to do it today. So I'm rested. Okay, white space. If you fill every space in your calendar, there's no white. You're not going to be thinking clearly about the future. You don't have time to dream. God made you. God designed you to spend 1/3 of your life switched off, not interacting with the environment. Rest is part of our design. Now, that's been hard for me. I like working. I like doing. And I love what I do. I love what I do. What I do makes me happy. And watching things progress makes me happy. But I've also got to realize the greater my responsibility to create margin. Because otherwise I can't help people. And it's the same for you. Create margin. It's like being when you're on the airplane, what they say, put your own mask on first before you help anyone else. Make sure you get your rest in. Make sure you get your time in. Make sure you get your dreams dreamed. Otherwise, you won't help anyone else dream. You won't have anyone else rest, okay? One of the reasons why so many people are listening to me talk about dreams is because I've got credibility there. In the last 6 years, we've gone from being on one TV channel once a week, nobody watched us, to being on, I think, 14 times a week, 15 times a week. I don't even know anymore. We're on satellites all over the world. We're getting phone calls from New Zealand, emails from Brazil. We're getting people baptized in the Holy Ghost in America. We're getting people healed in Switzerland. My dream that God gave me in 2002 is manifesting in 2020. And so if I don't work on that and believe for that and expect for that, my credibility to help other people dream their dreams is gone. I'm not as good a leader. Nobody wants to like me because I'm exhausted all the time. Nobody respects me because I'm not being fruitful. And nobody wants to be like the guy who looks like he's about to die any second because he's so exhausted. Okay? Margin is important. Margin makes you more self-aware. It makes you stop and go, oh, wow, that relationship didn't work. Or that didn't happen right. Oh, that person sounded upset with me. But if you don't stop and think about these things, you won't know these things. Margin helps you process what's going to happen next. Margin's where you dream. Margin is where, you see, look, if you're a good leader, you're probably biased to action. But if all you do is act, when do you stop and think about what you're acting on? When do you act appropriately? When do you think about what you perceive, what other people perceive? When do you think about different ways of doing things? How can we improve the way we're doing things? You need time to dream. You can't use your imagination if you're going full speed ahead. So your imagination is vital. You've got to count the stars. You've got to go out at night and count the stars. Okay, and you need to rest. If you live in London, I know a lot of you watching this from outside of London, but London's the busiest city in the world, and leaders are the busiest people in the world. And we have this generation of busy, 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 busy. And even companies now, even in the business world, they're saying, well, how can we schedule rest time into our employees? Can we have a gym at work and give them a daytime workout? Can we give them a short nap in the afternoon? Can we give them time out from the office? How can we make people more productive? How can we make people healthier? All these things are making margin. The corporate world is now finding out what the Bible taught all along. People were not designed to expend all their energy all the time, but to work and then rest, and then work and then rest. And your calendar should have rest in it as well as work in it. If you want to be the best leader you can, recharge. Build space in your calendar, time with friends, time for exercise, time for rest, time to travel, time just to sit back and listen to your favorite album, time to read your Bible. All of that is margin. How do you create margin? Number one, get rid of the unimportant. Get rid of unimportant things. Stop doing unimportant things. Use the 3 R's. If it's not giving me a return, if it's not rewarding to do it, if it's not something I have to do, then stop doing it. Focus on what's important. Use the 80-20 rule. You know, you could declutter your entire house, make cleaning so much easier with the 80-20 rule. Do you realize that you only wear 20% of your clothes 80% of the time? Do you realize that 20% of your rest time gives you 80% of your recharge and your happiness? Do you realize that 20% of your friends gives you 80% of the joy of having friends? Do you realize that 20% of your stuff is what you use 80% of the time? 80% of your stuff you hardly ever use. Chuck it in the bin. You don't have to clean it. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to tidy it up. Be like God. Take 1/7 off. God rested on the 7th day. That's 14% of the time. So that's what my goal is now, 14% off. So if I'm awake 16 hours in a day, that means 2 hours and 15 minutes, I'm not working. I'm not working 16 hours, I'm off. I'm not working. I'm resting. I'm recharging. I'm having fun. I'm down the gym. I'm going for a walk with Amanda. A lot of you could say 2 hours, 15 off every day. But you're going to have to make margin if you want to finish well, not just start well. Take a day off every week and ensure you use it to rest and recharge. Go through life at a slower pace. And it's hard to maintain that margin because people want to invade. They want to be the space invaders. You know, it's like when you're driving along the road, you leave a nice gap between you and the car in front, someone's going to come in. You put a nice white area in your calendar, someone's like, I need this, Pastor, I got to have this. No, okay, and you've got to know this. Your rest time is not a waste of time. Your dreaming time is not a waste of time. We live in a day where I've just found these are the UK statistics. 35% of people who work in offices have their lunch at their desks every single day. It's 1 in 3 people every day. They're at their desk. They don't leave their desk. They don't leave that workplace. They don't recharge. And then 50% work during their holiday. 50% do company work during their holiday. There's no margin. There's no rest. So productivity is being sacrificed at the altar of activity. We have to learn to stop. We have to learn to take stock of what we're doing and look at our priorities and reevaluate what we're doing. And if you don't have rest time, how can you reevaluate? You need time to look at your systems, okay? So it's now an hour in, so I'm going to stop this in the next 5 minutes. If you've got any questions, now's a good time to ask them. Now's a good time to type your questions in. Try and keep it to leadership. Try and keep it to setting priorities. If it's a specific situation, I'm happy to help and use it as a case study for others. If you're happy for it to be public and on YouTube, that's fine. But you have to learn how to press pause. Daily rest, weekly rest, monthly rest, annual rest. Nothing will give your life more productivity. Nothing will make you a better leader than this task. Setting good priorities, deciding what's important. And it becomes so much more important when we live in a generation where we're just busy all the time. And being overworked is seen as a virtue. It's not a virtue. It means you're not being as fruitful as you can. Okay? Every one of you needs to ask the following 5 questions. I'm going to end with these 5 questions. And then if you've got questions for me, then I'll take them. Number 1, where in my life am I working harder when actually I probably could work smarter? I mean, think about the radio thing. That saved me so much time. Number 2, what must I give up? Because I can't have it all. What must I give up? Just give it up because I don't need it. Number 3, what good things can I stop doing to get the better thing? Number 4, what must I do to be proactive and be ready for things rather than reactive? And number 5, what can I put in my place? What can I put in my life to stop me doing urgent, unimportant things? Okay. Like I said, I'll upload this to YouTube and listen to it again. I know I haven't sent out any notes yet, but sometime in the next couple of days, I will send out all the notes to you all. Okay, I've got all your email addresses when you register for the webinar. I will send out all the notes to you and get you last week's notes and this week's notes, and then get you ready for next week. I'm not sure what I'm doing next week. I'll tell you now. Hold on, let's have a look. No one's typed a question. Oh, someone's typed questions in the discussion. That's fine. Let's see if I can't get to. Yeah, here we go. No, that's the Case City Conference. Here's the Leadership Academy. Okay. So next week, we'll be looking at the foundation of leadership. The foundation of leadership is character. And we will look at character. Okay, the foundation of leadership is character. That's a really good, don't tune off, because about character, it's really important. I'll tie it won't just be a normal talk about character, it'll tie it to leadership. Awesome. Okay. Do I think the coronavirus has made people rethink? I'm not sure it has, Jen. I'm not sure it has. I think a lot of people have enjoyed the rest and appreciate the time off. I was talking to someone about it yesterday, and I thought maybe rather than the way this has happened as a reaction to the coronavirus, maybe the government should turn around and say, do you know what? Every 10 years of your working life, we'll give you 3 months off on 80% pay. If you've worked for 10 years and paid taxes into the system, we'll give you 80% pay for 3 months up to a maximum of $2.5 grand. That was the sort of furlough scheme. And then we'll go to furlough whenever they want after 10 years of work. I think that would really benefit our country and really benefit businesses and really benefit churches and so on. But I think you'll find this whole thing, anything that's a reaction, Jen, generally doesn't last. So you'll find when the lockdown ends and everything's over, everyone will just go back to breakneck speed. Some people will take it on board, some people will listen, but on the majority, I don't think so. I'm glad that's helped, Gladys. Very blessed. Thank you. That's good. Okay, no questions then as far as I can see. Praise God. Thank you for all the praise. I'm really glad for the feedback. I'm glad it's helping you. It's very strange preaching to myself still. You know, it'd be great to have you all together in a congregation audience and, you know, just talk and then a bit more feedback. But I'm going to wrap this up now because Amanda's got to start in 27 minutes on this computer. So love you guys. And I'll send you out the YouTube link. I'll put it in the WhatsApp groups for you. And we will see you soon. Absolutely. If you're in Nuneaton, say hello tonight. Watford's on tonight. It's going to be a glorious service. Dagenham and Guildford tomorrow. Tree.church/calendar. And get yourself there. And what's the other one? In the evening. We've got 3 in the evening. Cambridge, Brentwood, and Dorset. What a glorious weekend. 7 glorious services. Praise God. Okay. Bye then.